In this topic, we are looking at some of the control plane security controls, and sometimes it's going to vary based on whether we're on a firewall or a router or a layer 3 switch. There's actually a chart a little bit later in the courseware that'll show you what is applicable to whether it's ASA or iOS, etc., etc. But we see some examples of some of the different types of attacks that, of course, could infiltrate our control plane. So there's things like routing protocol authentication and filtering or spanning tree protection, which we can implement. A lot of these we'll look at in more detail in some of the later sections. On our routers and on our ASAs, if we want to protect against things like route injection or control plane flooding, things like control plane policing, which we can do on iOS, or control plane ACLs, which we can do on our firewalls, are just ways of protecting. Here are some examples of some of the other things that we can protect against. So when we look at some examples of the different types of DOS attacks, the DOS attacks are generally going to be attacking our network infrastructure, and when our CPU is too high of a utilization, then we can certainly start dropping routing protocol updates or just dropping traffic in general, having very slow and unresponsive management sessions. So our infrastructure ACLs are one of the ways we can mitigate against these infrastructure attacks. And we'll spend a little bit more time later talking about control plane policing and control plane protection. Those are just some of the ways that we can protect against any attacks on our control and management planes. And of course, we also want to implement things like authentication on our dynamic routing protocols. Anytime we have any type of excessive traffic, of course, this can eventually lead to, the high CPU utilization and dropping of traffic.